Hello, I'm back for the second half of Chapter 17, Regrouping. The worst part about life in an abandoned mine was the constant waiting. It might have been easier if the refugees had any indication of what they were waiting for, but with each passing day there was no good news or bad news to share. They were becoming so restless that any information would have been better than none at all. To pass the time, the refugees formed a little academy within the mine and taught one another different skills. Jack and the Tin Woodman taught the villagers how to sculpt using their axes. Soon there wasn't a stalagmite in the mine that hadn't been carved into a squirrel, a beanstalk, a tower, or a mermaid. Robin Hood and the Merry Men gave the queens archery and sword-throwing lessons. The Sherwood natives became a little invasive of the queen's personal space while they were showing them how to improve their form and received dirty looks from the kings. Red's granny and the old woman from the Shoe Inn kept the kings and soldiers busy with sewing lessons. After a few days, the men had produced their first quilt and proudly hung it on display for the rest of the mine to see. Remember, any man can shape a nation with a crown, but it takes a real man to start a quilt from a thread, Granny said. Trobella tried to teach Peter Pan and the Lost Boys to dance, but they weren't enthusiastic students. It didn't matter how many times she went over the steps of her routine. The boys only goofed off and teased one another. I don't know how to be more clear with you, Trobella said. It's step, touch, kick, ball, change, reach to the right, reach to the left, kick, ball, change, shimmy to the front, shimmy to the back, pirouette, and pose. There's no nose picking, pants dropping, eye poking, or tongue showing in any of my choreography. Peter had made a funny face at the Troll Queen behind her back. All the Lost Boys laughed, and she turned around just in time to see it. When Trobella had first laid eyes on the boy who never grew up, she was completely smitten, but the more his true color showed, the more she disliked him. He was all sparkle and no substance. The Troll Queen figured it was time to break the news to him. She looked Peter Pan directly in the eye and caressed his face. I had such high hopes for us, but I'm afraid it's not going to work out, Trobella said. She covered Peter's mouth to silence his protest, even though he hadn't tried to argue. We simply have different needs, Trobella explained. I'm looking for romantic strolls. You need a stroller. I'm looking for love and lust. You need a leash. I'm looking for a butter boy and you're just a butter toy. Let's part as friends. Trobella sauntered away from Peter Pan and the Lost Boys. The boys exchanged a puzzled look, not sure if that was part of the dance lesson or not. Goldilocks lay in the corner of the mine using Lester as a pillow and Claudius as a footstool. The expectant mother was overdue and very eager to deliver the baby. Her backaches and irritability increased every day. Jack had to take all sharp objects away from her so she wouldn't have anything to throw during a mood swing. Hagita boiled some herbs in her cauldron and gave the concoction to Goldilocks for the pain. The traveling tradesman dangled a triangular stone on a string over her pregnant belly and studied the movement very closely. Red watched the traveling tradesman like he was a lunatic. What are you doing? Red asked. I'm predicting the child's gender, the traveling tradesman said. If the stone swings in a circle, it's a girl. If it moves back and forth, it's a boy. And what if it gets ripped out of your hand and thrown across the mine? Red asked. It's all right. I already know it's going to be a boy, Goldilocks said. How could you possibly know that? Red said. Mother's intuition, Goldilocks said. It's the one perk that comes with the bloating, the back pain, and the unstable emotions. A niece would be better for me, Red said. I could dress her up in little dresses, apply blush to her tiny cheeks, and put dainty bows in her hair. I suppose I could do that for a nephew, too, but he might resent me for it later. Goldilocks rolled her eyes. Your request has been submitted, she said. Red grabbed the string of the tradesman's triangular stone and forced it to swing in a circle above Goldilocks' stomach, as if that would do the trick. Have you chosen a name yet? Hagita asked. Not yet, said Goldilocks. I want his name to be special. I want it to mean something, to inspire him for his whole life. I know Red works both for boys and girls, Red said, and I happen to be a very special, meaningful, and inspiring person. Goldilocks cringed at the thought of bringing another Red into the world. Absolutely not, she said. I want it to be original and freeing, like River or Robin or Alex and Connor. Red scrunched her nose up and crossed her arms. How are Alex and Connor original and freeing? No, Alex and Connor are here, Goldilocks yelled. Look over there. Goldilocks sat up and pointed to the back of the mine. Everyone went dead silent and turned toward where she was pointing. When they saw Alex and Connor entering with Rook and Cornelius, the refugees burst into cheers and the mine vibrated with joy. Although it hadn't been too long since they had seen most of them, the twins felt like they were walking into a reunion. Their friends surrounded them and stood in lines to embrace them. There were so many familiar faces they weren't expecting to see. They didn't know who to say hello to first. Everyone looked more tired, thinner, and paler than before. Living in the mine had worn them down. It's so wonderful to see you, Alex said. Goldilocks, you look like you're about to explode, Connor said. From your mouth to God's ears, Goldilocks said. Are you guys doing okay, Alex asked. Is everyone healthy and unharmed? We're taking it one day at a time, Jack said. How are you two? Where have you been? Alex and Connor shared a smile, knowing their news would excite them. We've been in the other world recruiting an army to fight the literary villains, Connor announced. That's terrific, the Tin Woodman said. What kind of army? It's an army of my characters, Connor said. We've used the portal potion on my short stories from school. So far, we've enlisted pirates, sailors, and cyborgs. I'll explain what those are later. All of the refugees turned to the traveling tradesman. The old geezer crossed his arms, leaning on a stalagmite, and glared at the others with a look that said, I told you so. That's the best news we've heard in ages, Sir Lambton said. How soon until it's ready for battle? It won't be long, Alex said. We have 2 more stops, and then the army will be complete. Did you hear that, men? Robin Hood asked the merry men. Soon we shall be out of the shadows of solitude and under the sunlight of war. How marvelous! Red pushed past the villagers, animals, and other royals to get closer to the twins. Excuse me, pardon me, a real friend coming through, she said. Alex and Connor, it's so lovely to see you that you're all right. She suddenly grabbed them both by the shirt and looked frantically into their eyes. You've got to get me out of here. There are peasants, animals, and men who talk to marbles. And Charlie isn't here to calm me down. The twins gently removed her hands from their clothes and took a step away. That's actually why we're here, Connor said. Our mom and stepdad are watching my characters for us while we recruit others, but they need a hand. We were hoping a few of you could come back with us to help them supervise. There are more characters than they can handle. How many people do you need? Jack asked. Alex and Connor looked around the mine. Red wasn't the only one who looked desperate for a break. The twins would have a hard time refusing anyone's help. The more the merrier, Connor said, but let's hurry. The people in this world need us. Alex set the storybook on the ground and opened the cover. The beam of light was the brightest thing many of the refugees had seen in days, and they shielded their eyes from it. Before Connor could even explain where they were going, Red ran into the beam of light and disappeared from the mine. She was followed by Claudius, Jack and Goldilocks, Robin Hood, the Merry Men, Lester and the Tin Woodman, Peter Pan, and the Lost Boys. Connor had lost count of how many people were traveling into the other world when he felt a tap on his shoulder. You've come back for me, Butterboy, Trobella said. I don't know why I worried so. You've never let me down before. I know the pain of being away from each other can be overwhelming, so please don't waste your energy with a personal request for me to accompany you. I'd be delighted to visit the other world. Before Connor could stop her, Trobella ran into the beam of light with the others. Okay, we've definitely got enough help, Connor said. We should get back and finish recruiting the army. If any of you need us, we'll be on the other side of this beam. We'll stay behind and look after the others, Sir Lambton said. Thank you, Alex said. We'll be back soon with help. Everyone stay safe. The twins stepped through the beam of light and returned to the other world. Sir Lambton, Sir Grant, Hagata, the traveling tradesman, Rook, Cornelius, Red's granny, the old woman from the shoe-in, the royal families, the villagers, and all the animals lowered their heads in a moment of silence. They all collectively said a prayer for the twins' success to continue, and for them to be able to form an army to save the fairy tale world. Unfortunately for the occupants that remained, their quiet moment was interrupted by another unexpected visitor. Unbeknownst to Alex and Connor, they had been followed through the dwarf forest and into the secret tunnel. The refugees saw something moving in the back of the mine. They heard hissing and rattling coming from a large silhouette. What was that? Sir Grant asked. The soldiers drew their swords and walked toward the sounds as a pair of bright red eyes glowed from the shadows. All the refugees froze where they stood, but they were frozen by much more than fear. And that ends the chapter. The next chapter is chapter 18, St. Andrew's Children's Hospital. I'll see you guys then. Bye.